Now, in this episode, we're also going to have Darksiders reviewed, but I'm here to review Bayonetta, and it's very interesting East and West kind of proposition. Darksiders is very much the Western take on the apocalypse, and Bayonetta is very much the Eastern take on the Battle of the End. For those who don't know, it's the battle of an Umbran witch named Bayonetta, who's a half-breed who's being chased down by Lumen sages as she fights through Vigrid, the European country, and does stuff and whatever. It doesn't matter. The story is mental. It is Japanese kind of mental. But the great thing is everything else comes together to work. Bayonetta's a real camp kind of, it's a very grindhouse kind of movie. And I normally don't go in for the grindhouse kind of movie, but it's a very interesting take, and they've managed to do it really well. And the great thing is, as far as I can tell, there's no real emo hairstyles, which is great, because it's the one thing that really annoyed me about Devil May Cry. There's Rodan, the big bald black guy. You've got Luca, who's got a bit of a long hair thing going on. You've got Enzo, who's just this creepy guy. But then, of course, you've got Bayonetta and the sages and the angels and all these things you're fighting, and it's just crazy, and it's over the top, but it handles fantastically. It sounds great. It really takes the piss out of itself. And let's face it, any game where one of your main attacks with an enemy weapon is to swing around it like a stripper pole can't be all bad. So I'll get down to some scores. That way we can evaluate this a little bit more objectively, shall we say. Now, the graphics on this one. Now, the graphics are an interesting beast. They, as much as anything else, they look great in a stylistic sense. The angels have a great look about them. All their designs are very, very Japanese. But it's not in a bad way, not in a really kind of a jarring way. It actually works. Most of the character designs work as far as the witches go, as far as the angels go, as far as everything goes. They all kind of work in their own way. Bayonetta's costume is fantastic, and she starts to wear less and less the more magic you use. There's a reason behind that. Trust me, it's there. And the actual effects themselves don't look that great. The blood doesn't look that great. The lighting doesn't look that great. But it all actually works in a package. When it's all put together, you're in the middle of this intense fight scene, and you get like it comes together and works really well. 8.5 out of 10. Now, the sound. This is where some of the most fun with the games have, because some of the dialogue is fantastic. It's really camp and it's really over the top, but it's fantastic. As much as anything else, it really boils down to how much you like that kind of Japanese craziness. Now, normally I don't. I really can't stand that kind of wacky Japaneseness for Japaneseness sake, if that was even an adjective. But it's really comes down to how much you like that kind of thing. The grindhouse feel, the attacks all sound fine. The climax moves, I really hate saying that word, the torture moves, all sound great. The sound works. And the soundtrack doesn't grate, even though it tends to be like the one J-pop song over and over again. It really doesn't grate as much as it should. I'm going to go the sound on this one, 8.5 out of 10. Now, the gameplay. And this is where it comes into its own. This is where it becomes the Devil May Cry sequel that we've always wanted. Taking nothing away from 3 and 4, of course, but it is fantastic. The fighting is very similar to Devil May Cry style. There's the punch, the kick, the shoot, and the action button. And there's also the dodge button. So if you press right trigger, you dodge. If you press Y, you do a light punch. B is kick. X is weapon, whatever weapon you've got on your wrists at the time. And it all works. It really flows. There's a great center floater, and the combo system works really well. The way that you set up most combos is through witch time. Now, that is an easy way to say dodging at the last second, or whatever other games want to call it, but if you press the right trigger, just as you're about to be hit, and you get like a second of witch time. And in that time, all your moves count for double damage. The combo just multiplies through the roof. And so that's the time when you score all your big hits. That's when you build up your magic and you get all your points added on there. And it really works as a mechanic. It's very simple. It can get very complex with some of the moves later on, but it still seems to work. It never really gets to the point where it's so jarring that you can't play it. And if you're into the fast-paced action of that Devil May Cry brought, you're going to be in heaven for this one. Gameplay, 9 out of 10. So all up, that's probably going to give us about an 8.5 or a 9, and that's about as fair as it's going to get. It's great, silly fun. The combat mechanics are very sound, sounds fantastic, has a big laugh at its own expense, and at like Sega's expense, and the video game industry's expense in general. So I could certainly recommend worse games than this. And let's face it, if the Eastern version of the Apocalypse has as many stripper poles as Bayonetta has, it's got to be onto something.